Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Sethum and welcome back to another video, folks. Today in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to install a virtual machine. Now to do that, we need a specific software. This is one of them. This is actually what I'm going to be using. It is VirtualBox, but there is another one that you can choose to get if you have the funds, and that is of course Vmware. So basically what we need to do is go into your Google search and type in Vmware. You can see that right there, and of course we are going to avoid clicking on any ads. Okay, some of these can be quite dodgy, so we don't really want to click on any ads. We're going to scroll further down and look for the actual website itself. So sometimes you may need to modify your spelling, but you have to be very careful with these ads. Okay, some of these ads can be a bit iffy. So if we scroll further down, we can see that it is http://www.vmware.com. So that is what we are looking for. And so this is what it'll bring up. And we want to go into apps and basically click on this, wait for it to load, see all products. And then here we want to search for virtual. So I'm going to type in virtual, and that should bring up all of the options available. Let me just make sure I typed it correctly. They do offer quite a few services. Of course, this is a paid service. So if we scroll further down, we can see right here, Workstation Pro. This is the virtual machine for Windows and Linux. Of course, if we want to buy this, let's just click on it to kind of show you how much it is. So buy online, and let's have a look. All right. It does ask me this question simply because I am in the UK, and of course this is a US website, so we can of course continue to the US website or just continue with this. I'm going to just go with what it's highlighted, and we get to see the price of this particular software. As you can see right there, £501. That's quite a bit of a price. Not a lot of people will be able to afford this, but that's fine. There is a free version that we can use, and of course let me just find the appropriate tab for it. And right here we're going to be using VirtualBox. It does the exact same thing as the paid software or the one that you want to buy, but it is free, so that is actually quite good. As you can see, the website isn't all that great. We're going to go into downloads. We want the Windows version of it. We do have several versions of this particular software, and so once we click on it, in the lower left corner you can see it is downloading the installer. So we wait for that to fully download, and once that is downloaded, we can open it up by double clicking on it. So we wait for the full circle to fill up, and then we double click on it to open the application. But in my case, I want to move this particular software from the folder it downloaded in. So we're going to open up the folder. We're going to copy out this particular program, and I want to shift it into a file that I have set up. So we'll go and do that. Wrong one. We're going to go into this right here. Where is it? There we go. Virtual machine. We're going to copy the software right next to the Windows ISO that I showed you how to create in the previous video. We're going to launch it, wait for the installer to launch, and whilst that does that, it's basically going to be a thing where I want to create a file. So I personally want to install this particular software in a set file in this folder. Of course, you can install it in the normal Windows system, but for my specific case, I want it in this. So I've created a file. We're going to go through the installer next. We want all of these to be ticked, so I like it the way it is. I'm not going to change anything. Of course, you can choose to swap out and untick certain boxes. I'm going to create another folder in this, and of course, this will be the folder where the installation for the VM box will be. So basically, or the VirtualBox software. So that's why I've typed it and named it as VB installation. I'm happy with that. Of course, we are going to change the location. Actually, I just realized I mistyped it, so let's make sure it's typed correctly. Next, we want to browse and select the folder that we are going to create the installation in. So I'm going to go through all of these, and there we go. That's the folder I wanted to install in. And we go through to next. I want all of these to be ticked for my particular case. And of course, it gives us a bit of a warning. You can read it if you want to. Nothing to worry about. I would just click yes, and that is exactly what we're going to do. Of course, it tells us a bit about the installation, so we are going to click install and just wait it out. This can take a while, so just be patient, and eventually the software will be installed. I will be speeding this up just for the purpose of this video. Alright, it's taken a while, but we're going to get there. Sometimes stuff like this do require a bit of patience. I think I'm probably going to end up cutting out certain bits and pieces. We'll see exactly how I am going to be editing this video when that time comes. I might potentially speed up certain sections that I do want to show, or I might try and cut out some things. I know that not everybody is tech savvy, so I am trying to cater these videos for everybody and all skill levels. Some people know how to install stuff like this. I mean, it is pretty self-explanatory. Some people aren't as tech savvy, so I am catering it for those types of people as well. So that does mean that the video will, of course, be somewhat longer, and I will put down timestamps for those that are interested in certain sections of this video and just want to skip to those. So as the installer goes through, it will pop out a question, and this is what it looks like. And of course, we do want to install the device software. It will just help with the operating system. So of course, we will select that and just let it do its own thing. It doesn't take that long for the installation, so once it is installed, we will then run the virtual box, or whatever the software is called. If you are using a different type of software, you can run that, but I think this is what I am going to be using, and I do like the fact that it is free. As you can see, it can of course take a bit of time. It is doing its thing, so of course we're not going to rush it. So once it is installed, you can have the start box ticked or not, depending on if you want to start it immediately. We want to start it immediately, and of course this is what the particular software looks like. So first things first, we want to create a new basically virtual box. First things first, we don't want it in the folder that it's set, so I have a specific location I want it to install, similar as before. So we're going to go into the virtual PC. We're going to create a new folder here. So I'm thinking, leave the icons like this. So just right click, new folder. And of course, this is where the virtual machine will be installed. So this is where the software is in the previous folder. So this is the software that we're now running. For this folder, we're going to rename it, and we're going to call it something like, I think I'm going to call it Virtual PC. So this is basically the virtual part of the computer where we will install the new operating system. Of course, if you want, you can name it. So I'm going to name it something random. You can call it, I don't know, I think I'm going to call it Dan, for example, and I will then show you later on how to change the name if you're not happy with the name that you chose. So let's do Dan, and that's pretty much it. We're going to go on to the next step. All right. Now over here it asks about the RAM memory. As you can see, I have 32 gigs of RAM. I can pretty much split it in half if I need to, but I don't want to do that. So I think I can give it somewhere around 10 maybe, or 14. That would kind of split it in half, but I want to give it less than that. We don't really need all that amount of RAM memory. I would suggest maybe at least 4. All right, so in this step, it asks us about the hard drive, how we want it. We're just going to leave it as standard. It does tell us that it will need at least 32 gigs of RAM. I'm going to give us RAM, 32 gigs of hard drive space. Of course, I'm going to give it around 50 just for good measure, because we're going to have other types of software installed on it. Nothing too big, but 50 should be more than enough for updates and everything that the OS will be requiring. So we're going to go on to the next step. Once you're happy with this, of course, it asks us some more details about how we want the hard drive. I normally tend to leave it on the default setting unless you want something specific, and then that is up to you. So yeah, feel free to read these, make a decision. I'm just going to leave it on the standard setting because that is what suits me. And then when I'm ready, I'm going to click on next. Over here, we want to basically select the storage type on the drive. I'm happy with that. Again, we're going to go on to next. You can read the instructions if you want to. And over here, this is where we select the size or the amount of hard drive that we want to allocate to it. Of course, we want it to be dynamic, so it will of course expand if we need to. I have a terabyte here, so I have plenty of space. I'm going to go, as I said, for 50 gigabytes of space on this particular drive. And there we go. That is pretty much the, let's call it, box version of the software. So now it wants a Windows operating system. Over here in settings though, you can change the name and modify it. You can fiddle around with these settings if you choose to do so. I think we are going to change the name, and I'm going to call it Windows. You can, of course, install any type of operating system that you want in this virtual machine. The machine, of course, will require us to load the ISO file that I showed you how to download and create. And so once that is loaded, we can then start. So press on this green arrow. It will basically start the virtual machine with the ISO file that is now booted into the equivalent of a virtual CD drive or flash drive, whatever you want to call it. It will take a bit of time for it to start up. Now, of course, for anyone that has ever installed Windows, you might know it does take quite a while. Now, for the purposes of this video, I will try and show as much as possible because not everybody is tech savvy and knows how to install a Windows operating system. So I'm going to click install. The first window, of course, asks us some generic questions. So select what suits you there and then go into the next, which will then ask us to install. Over here, we're going to say we don't have the product key. That'll take us to the next window. I want Windows 10 Pro. So once you've selected what version of Windows 10 you want, just click on next. We're going to accept the license agreement. And of course, we are going to do custom here. It shows us the hard drive space. You can choose to format, refresh, all sorts of things. But it is a fresh copy. So of course, we're just going to go with next. I'm happy with all the settings. And from now on, the ISO drive basically will do its thing. It will start installing. It can take quite a bit of time, and of course, for the purposes of this video, I will be speeding this section up because it does take quite a while, but I do want to show everybody what the steps are, what it looks like, what it goes through. It does take roughly around, I'd say, 20 to 30 minutes, and of course, with Windows, if you've ever installed Windows, it will sometimes want at least one reboot. So do not panic if it does do that. It's just perfectly normal. Depending on the type of software or operating system, it may want one or more reboots, but that is perfectly normal. So this is what you're seeing. It's now going to start restarting. And we wait for this to do its thing. All right, so we are now in the restarting phase. We're just going to wait this out. You can see that it does basically go off. So when the screen goes small, that means it's turned itself off and it's turning back on when the screen goes back to what was the previous size. So as you can see, this is the installation part of Windows where we go through all of the settings to personalize it. Now, I could skip all this, but of course, as I said, not everybody knows how to install Windows. And so what I'm going to do is I will, of course, speed the loading sections up, but I will kind of talk you through what I select, why I select it. And of course, bear in mind, this is just a virtual machine installation. Of course, you might want to choose different things. And of course, if you do install a real copy, it works just like this. So if you install a real copy on a real computer, the exact same thing happens. So of course, we've selected the language here and the region for the keyboard. So I'm using English UK. And of course, we just wait for the next question. As you can see right here, it wants us to add the security key. We don't have one, so we have to create an account. Of course, with this, it'll ask for certain details, which I will cut out. And I'll let you guys fill this out. Basically, just fill out your name, your date of birth, phone number, stuff like that. So just obviously the standard stuff that you would need to fill out when you fill out or create a new account. So this is what it looks like right here. We get to create a new email address or a new Outlook account. So you can use a phone number or email address. We're going to use an email address, might as well. I have got out the email address just because. Now, at this section, it will want you to create a PIN. Now, in the past, which is really interesting, I could skip this particular section and not have it coded or password protected or PIN protected. But unfortunately, that does not seem to be a step anymore or an option. So we have to create a PIN. It's up to you to remember the PIN that you put in, because of course this PIN will be required every time you turn on your machine. Personally speaking, I dislike that, especially seeing as I'm the only one that's going to be using it. I just find it a bit, I don't know, it's not something that I would be too happy with. But I guess if you're using a laptop, a PIN is useful to protect your data. So with that said and done, let's create a PIN. As you can see, really there isn't any option of skipping this step, which is, I don't know, I wish it was. But I can see why Windows did this, and so let's go with the PIN creation. I'm going to set up a PIN, so it's going to ask us to introduce a PIN and then verify it by confirm it by reintroducing it. So first things first, we're going to create the PIN, and we are going to confirm the PIN by re-entering it in the next box. Make sure that you remember what the PIN is, because this is going to be quite important every time you turn on the virtual machine, or in case you are installing it on an actual computer, which is the exact same thing. You will need to have the PIN or know the PIN to introduce it to be able to access it. So of course, these are a couple of questions that the operating system will ask. We don't really want this with regards to Find My Device. This is a virtual machine, so we're gonna basically skip this. Diagnostic, do you know what, let's help Microsoft with diagnostic data. We can select yes on this as well. You can select no if you want to. Now this is really interesting right here. It doesn't really make a difference which one you choose, to be honest. It's all to do with advertising, so you'll get advertising either way. I suppose if you select yes, you just get something a bit more tailored to what you've been browsing or what you may be interested in. But it does not reduce the amount of adverts that you get. So over here, we're going to basically select all these boxes. I'm going to be using it for pretty much everything. It is a virtual machine. I mean, we're not going to do any gaming, but we might break a couple of stuff in it. So might as well. And let Microsoft set up the settings in the operating system to facilitate that. Use Android. Well, we're not going to use Android from this PC, so remind me later. I might want to add it at some point, but as it currently stands, I don't want it, which is why I basically didn't select or refused it, if that makes sense. So back up your files with OneDrive. We don't really care about that. If we break it, we can fix it. That's fine. So we're going to basically only save files onto this particular drive. All right, so over here, it's asking for the Office thing, software that you want. So this will have Word, Excel, Publisher, and so on, Outlook and all that. We don't really care about that. If you do have a product key, you can enter it or you can just buy it, but we don't care about that. So we're going to skip that. Over here, it's asking about games and stuff like that. Well, we're not really installing it for games, so no thank you. Of course, there is a subscription fee, as you saw there. Again, it's asking about Cortana, which is the equivalent of Siri. We don't really care about that either. Not on this machine at least, because that's not what we're using it for. So it'll take a while now. It's going to start setting up the configuration based on what we chose. And so we're just going to wait this out. Normally this doesn't take too long. But yeah, I just wanted to show these steps. I mean, they're kind of self-explanatory. And I did try my best to explain why I selected everything I did. I mean, especially bearing in mind that this is, of course, a virtual machine, so we're not really going to be using it for gaming. But you don't know when I want to break something in the virtual machine, so that is one of the reasons I selected it. I might want to introduce something in there and see what breaks first, either the virtual machine or the game. That is one of the reasons, of course, I am building this particular virtual machine. So this does not take that long. We just wait it out, and once it's ready, it will pop us onto what would be our desktop. From there on, we can customize it however we want. We can add a desktop background, stuff like that. Start installing whatever software that we want to have on this virtual machine. And basically this is, think of it this way, it's a computer inside a computer. Whatever you play around with in the virtual machine, if you break it, you can just restore it to a snapshot, which is what's cool about this. You can test different things. You can go on, well, I don't know, I'd say websites, and if you do play around with viruses or dangerous or harmful programs, it's in the virtual machine. It does not affect your actual computer, and if you break it, you can just restore it to the snapshot that you've taken before you've broken it, so to speak. So I will have to debate if I leave this particular section in or not. It does take a bit, but I just kind of want to show people, I suppose, how to install it, what it does, and I guess how long it takes. Almost there. So when we get this little prompt right there, basically it is what it says it is. And there we go. So networks, we're gonna let the hold on a bit. So I don't really want this to connect to the network, so we're gonna basically select no here. Of course, yeah, we don't want this. We're going to use other ways of getting it, so we're going to go for no here. Okay, so once you have completed the installation, this is what it'll look like. Of course, from this point forward, you can go on Microsoft Edge, which is the equivalent of Google Chrome, and download whatever desktop background you choose to have. I'm going to be changing that. And of course, I want to install Google Chrome. Now, I'm probably going to leave this in the video because to me this is quite funny. There is a little thing that happens when you want to look for Google Chrome and download it. So I guess I might as well show it because to me it's funny. I never use Microsoft Edge, and this goes back to the time where Microsoft Edge was known as Internet Explorer. It's not, in my opinion, as good as other specific web browsers. So, you know, Mozilla, Firefox, Opera, or Google Chrome, which is my browser of choice. Of course, it will ask all of these things. As you can see right here, we have some settings. We don't really care for it. We just want to get past those settings so I can then, of course, download Google Chrome. I'm going to go for the dark because I like the dark theme. And yeah, I'm going to finish this up. You know, let's tick some of these boxes just for argument's sake. I mean, I will have to use sometimes Edge, depending on what I'm using it for, to download stuff. So might as well get some advertisements and news and stuff. But this is where the funny bit comes in hand. Just watch what happens. So yeah, we're just having a look over here. Just double checking. So that is what is currently in that right there. Anyways, let's go into the search box and look for Google Chrome. I'm actually going to reopen this up. All right, so it'll take us back to the initial window. It's still initializing certain things, so bear with. It can be a bit slow at the beginning. Of course, this is a virtual machine, so it doesn't have the full capacity that we'd normally expect. So with that said and done, let's look for Google Chrome and see what happens. This is going to be funny. So let's look for download right there. That is what we want. Are you ready for this? And here comes the funny bit right there. So apparently Microsoft Edge is not happy with us because we are trying to download Google Chrome. And to me, this is really funny. It is what it is. So yeah, from this point forward, you can install whatever software you want. It's up to you. Just don't forget to create a snapshot before you go around trying to break things. I'm going to show you how to do that in the next video, but that is pretty much it for this particular video, folks. I do hope that you have found it useful and informative. If you have, please do not forget to support me and the channel by hitting that like button, share, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, stay safe, folks.